Welcome to Learning English with Captain Binoy Varakil, Assistant Professor, Department of English, St. Joseph's College, Calicut. We continue our discussion of the core course reading fiction. In the previous lecture, we discussed the different characteristics of fiction. We defined what fiction is. We know that fiction refers to short story, novelette, and novel. And we came to the fact that novel developed from medieval romances. And yesterday in the lecture, we saw that the European medieval romances were translated into English, and all those romances were the forerunners to the novel. And we understand that the forerunners of the novel, medieval romances, they have a peculiar focused plot and unified point of view. And it is the focused plot and unified point of view that is the major aspect of the historical, that's of course medieval romances. And it is this particular aspect that slowly helps the writers to write the very novel passage. And now in this lecture, today's lecture, we are looking at some of the important romances and some of the important early prose writings which are attempts of novel in Britain. We are looking at the most important prose writings which are rather close to what is called novel, or rather we are looking at early attempts at novel writing in Britain in this lecture. And we have to come to the fact that the most important romances that influence the world, especially Britain, are the romance that is the Arthurian romance among the many Arthurian romance we have Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. And besides this Arthurian romance, we have the romances from European countries, especially the Italian romances. And one among the best Italian romances is Giovanni Boccaccio's Decameron of 14th century. And this particular Decameron of Boccaccio influenced the writers of the medieval period, especially the 14th and 15th centuries. Similarly, we have also romances in Spanish language. And in Spanish, we have the 1605, in the year 1605, we have Miguel de Cervantes' novel attempt, or something which is of course like the historical romance, that is of course Don Quixote. And Don Quixote has a lot of aspects of the present day novel Don Quixote. And besides that, we have of course a lot of other medieval romances, and all this is influencing writers in Europe, especially in Britain, to write a lot of novels. Yeah, I also want to write something like this. So when we study novel, poetry, drama, essays, etc., we must always remember that we can also do this. So I'm requesting you, my dear students, see, you are specializing in English, you are specializing in, of course, the English language and literature, and this is of course a great opportunity for you to find your talents. once you know that you have some interest in literature, you have some interest in learning the great writers, please ensure, or rather, please see that you are improving your talents as well. So, anyone can read, study, and get a very good score and have a job, but life is not that alone. So, okay, there are people who study English for a long time. There are people who read English for a long time, use English, teach English. But this is a golden opportunity for you to find your talents. So I'm just requesting you, because I want my students to excel in whatever field they are. So you must excel in your career, your life, and if you have the talent of writing something, please do write. Okay, there are people who teach poetry for many years, teach novels for many years, and it is so saddening and disappointing fact that they don't write even a single poem. So sometimes they would say that, oh, and everyone cannot write poetry, everyone cannot write a story, everyone cannot write a novel. It's true, everyone cannot do that, but whoever is studying poetry, whoever is studying novel, whoever is studying and teaching poetry, novel and play can attempt. And I am requesting you, my dear students, you are learning English, you are learning English language and literature, you are learning poetry, you are learning novel, play, and all this is familiar to you. You know what poem is, you know what a novel is, you know what drama is. Then what are you waiting for? Please write a poem, please write a story, please start writing a novel. Anyone can write novel, a novel, and once you write one novel, you will see that you can write more. Such a way you can bring meaning to your life, you can find the beauty and power of language. Okay, that is my request to you. Now, we are right now looking at some of the early attempts of novels. There are writers who are writing a lot of novels, and all these novels written in the 16th centuries and the 17th century led to the development of English novel. And when we look at the history of the English novel, we have to remember the following important names. First name we have to remember is the name of the 16th century English writer John Lyly. John Lyly wanted to be a writer, and he wrote a lot of something like novel. And one of his titles of 1579, which is Euphues. Euphues is a prose narrative, and it has a lot of qualities of the modern novel. Or from Euphues of John Lyly, novel develops in Britain. And after Lyly, we have Sir Philip Sidney, the great poet and writer and novelist, and Philip Sidney's Arcadia. Arcadia of 1590 is considered to be another very important stepping stone in the development of prose narratives, extended prose narratives, which are considered to be early attempts of novel. After Sidney, we have Thomas Nash. And Thomas Nash's 1594 title, The Unfortunate Traveller, is again another forerunner to the modern novel. It has a lot of qualities of modern novels. And thereafter we have in 1684 yet another title by a great writer, John Bunyan. John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress is another very important title which leads to the development of the English novel. Similarly, we have in the 16th and 17th centuries a lot of periodicals, the appearance of pamphlets, appearance of periodicals and journals, and all these journals are inculcating a lot of literary interest in the readers and writers. Writers are inspired to write, and all these writers are getting published in weeklies, periodicals, journals, etc. And there comes the significance of Addison, Joseph Addison, and Richard Steele, and their spectator papers, which is of course a periodical, just like our present day weeklies like Madhubhumi, Madhyamam, or of course many other weeklies, which is of course encouraging writers and literature. It was of course a great chance for opportunity for budding writers and writers to write and publish. So the spectator papers of Addison, Joseph Addison, and Richard Steele is again another very important literary event in the development of English novel. So after that we have a great novelist. Okay, so now we have Daniel Defoe, and Daniel Defoe's titles, all he has written of course many novels, and the important novels of Daniel Defoe are, one is Robinson Crusoe. Robinson Crusoe has a lot of elements and qualities that make it a novel, and 1719 Robinson Crusoe of Daniel Defoe is a very, very important landmark in the history of English novel, and it has almost all the qualities of an English novel, and critics are of the opinion that this can be considered the first novel of English with all its aspects, right? And some agree that it is of course the first novel, but there are other critics who do not consider Robinson Crusoe's Daniel Defoe as the first novel. Of course they say that 1740 Pamela of Richardson is the first novel. Okay, now we have to consider another important title by Defoe, that is Moll Flanders of 1722. So Moll Flanders of 1722 of Defoe is again another very important novel. And after that we have a lot of writers, lot of extended prose narratives, and we have the name of Jonathan Swift. Jonathan Swift is writing a lot, and all his writing has a lot of acceptance and appreciation, and his writings are becoming bestsellers. And 1726 we have the great satiric writings of Jonathan Swift, and it is of course Gulliver's Travels, very important novel like extended prose narrative is Gulliver's Travels. So from all these titles of Lilly, Sidney, Nash, Bunyan, Steele, Defoe, and Swift, we have the very beautiful, interesting, and appealing literary form called novel. And okay, as we saw in the first lecture on fiction, we know that critics agree with the fact that Richardson's Pamela of 1740 is the first novel in English. And of course it is, because it has a lot of aspects and qualities, like it has a plot, there's a beginning, middle, and an end. There's a point of view written from the point of view of Pamela, the heroine, and it has of course the characterization, a lot of characters, a lot of incidents, and a philosophy of life. And it is considered 1740 Pamela or Virtue Rewarded is considered to be the first English novel. And thereafter a lot of writers, and the next writer is of course Henry Fielding, and the inspiration for the novel of Henry Fielding is Richardson's Pamela. Now that we have Pamela Andrews of Samuel Richardson, you have another novel by another writer who is just a rival of Samuel Richardson, and that is Henry Fielding. Fielding is writing. No, such a virtuous life is difficult. Such a virtuous lady is, of course, unbelievable. So he is making a novel, Joseph Andrews, and it is published in the year 1742. These two novels, Pamela as well as Joseph Andrews, are bestsellers. People read that, buy it. And these two novels have a lot of significance, and in the subsequent lectures we are looking at different types of novel. And when we are discussing different types of novel, in each video we will be looking at one type of novel. And these two novels are examples for two types of novel. Say for example, Pamela is a novel which is written in the form of letters. And we are looking at the epistolary novel in the next video. And Pamela has its significance. We are discussing Pamela, an epistolary novel, in detail in the next lecture. After that, we will be looking at Joseph Andrews of Henry Fielding, because Joseph Andrews has a lot of qualities like qualities of a picaresque novel. And we are going to discuss the types of novel. Number 2, that is of course, what is a picaresque novel? We have to understand what a picaresque novel is. And we know that the word picaresque comes from the Spanish title picaro, which means rogue or villain. And of course, the forerunner to the British picaresque novel is the Spanish picaresque novel Don Quixote of 1605. We have to remember all that. So today, of course, we are just ending this lecture by confirming or substantiating the fact that the novel evolves in Britain through medieval romances after the French, Italian and Spanish medieval romances translation and wide popularity and publicity in Britain. In Britain, there are of course a lot of attempts at novel, and all these novel attempts slowly evolve into what is called modern novel. And we have a lot of novel attempts from Lilly, Sidney, Nash, etc. And of course, the best novel in English is, the first and best novel in English is published in the year 1740. That is of course Richardson's Pamela. Next video we are discussing what is an epistolary novel, and we are discussing the first best epistolary novel in the history of English novel, that is Samuel Richardson's Pamela. Thank you very much for listening. May God bless you all.